Burrow tech. 2 centuries ago, it brought hope to those trying to escape the savageries of war. The company was founded to provide safety and security while the surface healed, awaiting the future generations to rebuild and repopulate. At least that's what the books told me. Standing here, beneath the sign self-proclaiming the company as a savior of all mammal kind, and thinking about what I had just witnessed. All I can say is that Burrow tech can go fuck itself. I don't even know if the company survived, but if they did, and if I find out that they had any interest other than protecting us, then I was going to find them, and I would hurt them. If not for the vengeance upon the atrocities I witnessed in that facility, then to protect the rest of the world from them. And this time, I will succeed. Miss, dawn is breaking and you still haven't had a moment of respite. I think we should find shelter before we continue on our journey. You know, Onion, after everything we've just been through, I'm feeling surprisingly alert. I checked my map. We're less than an hour away from Hope. Let's just get there, and then I promise I'll rest a bit. That adrenaline will wear off eventually, miss. And when it does, don't complain to me that you need rest. Thanks, Mom. I wonder what my mother would think of me right now, if she were still alive. Would she scold me for being so reckless? Or would she be proud of me for everything that I've accomplished? For overcoming so many adversities and still managing to keep going? There's not a day that goes by that I don't think of her. Even now. I keep recalling advice that she gave me, knowledge that she imbued to me to keep me safe. Sometimes I wonder if she was preparing me for this, if she knew that I would be doing something to help others. I miss her so much. Miss, I'm picking up something. I also miss peace and quiet. Where at? Approximately 40 feet from here, due north. I turned towards where Onion had detected something and brought up my own scanners to confirm it. It was moving very slowly, but enough so to pick it up. We had gotten out of the park, and the change from a barren landscape to a sky-reaching city was very abrupt. This park must have given the residents of those upper floors quite a view during its peak. Just like everywhere else, abandoned cars and trucks were scattered on the streets. There were much smaller rodent-sized ones scattered around a small tunnel that led into the park. That must have been how residents of Little Rodentia went about their travels without getting crushed by park-goers. They may have been transport to the smaller mammals, but to me, they just look like toys. I saw movement ahead, ducking behind a large truck. The sensors were only picking up one thing, so whoever it was, they were alone. I had no idea if it was another thug, or simply a wandering wastelander. But I wanted to make sure that if it was a ne'er-do-well, that they weren't about to cause any trouble, especially with the mood that I was in. I told Onion to hang back as I went to investigate. He gave me his usual concern for my safety, but I assured him that if there were any signs of trouble, we would simply leave it well enough alone. I'm pretty sure he knew I was lying, but he kept silent and did as he was told. I kept my eye on the scanner for any additional threats. I slowly moved from car to car towards the truck. So far, there was only the one blip on my map, so even if it was a threat, I should be able to handle it easily enough. Especially after everything else I've been through. I finally reached the truck and just stood there listening. The blip was just on the other side of me, but I couldn't hear anything. I really hope it's not a ghoul. But then again, I do feel like shooting something. Gah! This is really corrupting me. I checked my map. The blip was gone.
Why, hello there, Carrots.
That voice. That raspy and full of himself voice. Maybe I would shoot something, just in principle. I said, don't call me Carrots. And have you been following me?
From my perspective, it would seem you were following me. Olivia, was it?
Cut the act, North. What are you doing here? And most importantly, where the fuck are those coins you stole from me? Despite my radar not showing anyone there, North was walking out from behind the truck, his paws in his pockets of his raggedy pants. He took a few steps back and then just stood there looking at me.
That I stole from you? Well, I highly doubt they were yours in the first place. And is it a crime to steal something that never actually belonged to you? No, I think not.
I don't care. I want them now. I leveled my gun at his head. And put your paws where I can see them.
What? You a cop now? Last time I checked, Zootopia no longer had any sort of law enforcement. Or even laws for that matter. You going to police this whole world all by your lonesome carrots?
I will do what I must to protect any and all who need it.
And would that protection include shooting an unarmed and defenseless fox?
All I see is a ghoul. He was right, though. Despite what he looked like, he was in his own mind and he was unarmed. I couldn't let myself stoop to that level.
That's what they all say. If it looks dead, shoot it in the head. Can't say I blame 'em. You can't reason with those savage ghouls, no matter how much you try. Me, however, I'm a business mammal.
In the business of what? Theft?
Did I say I was on the straight and narrow? No, I did not. The problem is, out here everyone's walking the thin line between good and evil, and for most it's an uphill battle.
I lowered my gun. He wasn't acting aggressive, and to be honest, even if he did want to cause me harm, I doubt he had the guts to do it. Figuratively speaking. I took a few steps forward, but he responded by taking the same number backwards.
Thank you for putting your pea shooter down, but I like my personal space.
You know that part of you that just wants to make you punch someone? Well, North was beginning to tick it. I may not shoot him, but I didn't say I would let him walk away without getting uninjured. I put my gun back into my belt and covered it up with my coat. Maybe if I act disarming, he'll let his guard down. I always have bats just in case. If I could get the damn thing to work when I wanted it to. So, you're a businessman, huh? How about I just buy back the coins?
Afraid not, sweetheart. I already sold them.
I really wish he would stop calling me sweetheart. Like I'm his daughter or something. I did notice that he stumbled when he tried to say he sold them. I bet that fucker still has them. He did say there was no law out here, so maybe I can just try to take them back. By force if necessary. Why were these things so important to me? I should just meet up with Onion and leave him to his own devices. But something is tugging at me, saying that I need to get them back. You sold them? Well, maybe can you tell me to whom? I took a small forward as I said it. He must not have noticed because he didn't budge.
Sorry. Business is confidential and all that. Gotta protect my clients.
You probably don't even remember who you sold them to. I took another small step. I just gotta keep him talking.
Sweetheart, I know everybody.
Everybody? Well, then you must know plenty on me. Only a few more steps.
That's the thing. I don't. You're a pretty new player in these parts. Miss, I want to make the world a better place. All I see is some carrot-loving bunny who is way out of her element. Who's trying to wear the big boy pants and just manages to trip over her own feet. Yes, I do know of your momentous events with the theater. Everyone has heard of how some small bunny single-handedly took out an entire gang of gray quills, only to be rescued by those walking tin cans and swept away in a technological wonderland. Most mammals, myself included, think it was either an over-exaggeration or a simple ploy to give this world a hero. But one thing is certain. You can cause ripples in the water's carrots. But you better be careful, or else those ripples, they'll wash right over you.
So the events at the theater were turning some heads. Good. Maybe it'll make things easier to find out what I need to know in regards to the events of Beaverton. I managed to take a few more steps during his speech. I was only a few feet in front of him. He had to have noticed, but he still stood in the same spot. Well, tell you what. Next time I decide to single-handedly take on an entire group of thugs, I'll make sure you have a ringside seat so you can enjoy the show. With those final words, I quickly squatted down and propelled myself towards him, tackling him to the ground. Or at least that was the plan. I didn't expect to fall through him. I crashed against the car and rolled down on the pavement. I took a look back at North and saw him standing there, or rather, an image of him, rippling through the air like a magnetic distortion on a screen. It was a fucking hologram.
You gotta love pre-war tech. This beauty was popular in the entertainment business. A lifelike projection of anyone, anywhere. Gazelle used it to do multiple shows at once during her anti-war rallies.
So that's how you managed to take my bag without me noticing. I was so stupid. Why didn't I realize this? We had similar things in the Burrows. Only they were used for engineers to find the best way to fix stuff. But I had never been interested. I was always too busy actually trying to fix something instead of trying to figure out how to fix something. That would explain why my Pip-Boy wasn't picking him up right now. But it did pick him up earlier. He must still be nearby. Well, since I know about this charade, can you show yourself now? The real one?
Sorry, can't do that. You already tried to assault me, so I need to protect my skin. Figuratively speaking.
Alright, you fucker, get over here right now.
Bye-bye, Carrots. Maybe we'll see each other again. But hopefully after you attend your anger management classes. Oh, and Carrots, I do know more about you than I let on. That Pip-Boy you have speaks novels of you. You might want to step away from Hollow Me.
What are you? I heard a sizzling noise coming from the holographic North as the hologram faded away, leaving a small hexagon on the ground. It would have been barely visible if it wasn't for the sparks starting to emit from it. Fucking damn it. I dove behind the nearest car just as a small pop and fizzle created a narrow plume of smoke from the ground. That bastard got me again. I got up and walked over to where the hologram was. Whatever the device was, it was a smoldering heap. He must have triggered some sort of self-destruct mechanism on it. I was expecting a loud explosion, but it was once again a distraction to help him escape. Next time he won't get away from me so easily. I know his tricks. And I'll be the one who has the upper paw next time we meet. It's been 10 minutes since that bastard North got away again, and I can still feel him getting under my skin. I don't know why, but there's something about him that seems to rub my fur the wrong way. I could care less that he's a ghoul, despite his disconcerting appearance. He acts just like any rational mammal would. Well, an intelligent... I really need to stop painting this bastard as someone more than just a degenerate. When someone is trying to kill me, the solution is simple. But when someone's being a jerk, that complicates things. Damn this sense of morality. I shook the thoughts out of my head and focused on what was ahead of me. Getting to the town of Hope, alive. According to my map, it wasn't that much further, and since we had found the rail system we were on before, it should be easy. Provided there were no more other unexpected surprises. But from my experiences thus far, the unexpected is usually expected. I didn't really study much on Zootopia as a city when I was in the Burrow, mainly since I couldn't care less about a city that didn't exist anymore. I also never thought I would be in a position to see it for myself. Moments ago I was just in a flat area that was a city park, but now the buildings towered over me, many of them vanishing in the clouds. It was making me feel very small. Not all the buildings stood the test of time, however. I could see in the distance that one of them had fallen apart in the past, completely covering the tracks ahead and creating a rather difficult obstacle to maneuver past. From the look of it, that building had taken down a few others with it. Debris from the building was covering this area: concrete, steel, glass. even the occasional relic from the past. In this case, the warped remnants of a metal table became annoyingly persistent in blocking my travels. It's starting to get hard to move on these tracks, and it seems that there are a bit more obstacles in front of us anyways. I think we should get down to the streets and find a way around.
That may be easier said than done, miss. Take a look below us.
What was that robot talking about now? I moved to the side of the tracks and glanced down. The sun was in a position that cast shadows over most of the street below, but I was able to make out something moving? I grabbed my scope and got a closer look. There were too many cars below us, but I saw plenty of bodies. These bodies, however, were not just a few dozen innocent bystanders who died during the war. They were the ones who had the unfortunate luck to survive. Ghouls. Why is it we run into these fuckers constantly?
They are becoming quite a pain, miss.
At first glance, you couldn't tell that they were alive. But watch long enough and you could see a couple crawling around. They seemed very lethargic. But I knew that once they got going, it was hard to stop them. I don't know if they were able to hear or see better or worse than when they were alive. But from the look of it, they didn't know we were here, and I planned on keeping it that way. Looks like we need to find another way around. I really don't feel like dealing with them right now.
How about the building, miss?
We need to find a way around it.
I mean, what about going through it?
Through it? That actually never occurred to me. I just saw it as an obstacle, an impenetrable barrier that required me to think outside the box to bypass it, when all I needed to do was remain in the box and come up with a straightforward solution. I pointed the scope towards the building. I couldn't see how deep it was, but I was able to make out a way through it. It looked as if the entire side consists of windows, and the fall had shattered most of the glass covering them. It must have stuck out from the rest of the building when it was erect. While many of them had multitudes of windows, many of them either had organic shapes to them, like antlers of a gazelle, or reminded me of the Burrow, with an infrastructure made up of metal with sharp edges. This building was just as diverse as the residents once were. We decided the building would be much safer than trying to evade the swarm of ghouls, so we continued on to the collapsed structure. The tracks were slowly getting closer to the surface, but thankfully not close enough to draw any unwanted attention. I couldn't make out how many were actually down there, but I didn't want to risk getting spotted by one of them and causing a scurry, especially after I saw a few large mammals among them. I'm sure a rhino could finish taking down this already teetering track system. It started to bend in all angles. Some of the support beams must have been damaged by the collapsed building. Luckily, it felt sturdy. It was just awkward to maneuver at times. Onion stayed behind me, keeping a lookout for any unusual movement, as I finally reached a point where the tracks ended. The structure's fall must have torn down more of the railing than just where it had landed, because I could see a good 15-foot gap between where I stood and one of the unobstructed windows. Hey, Onion, you want to give me a lift?
You know I can't support your weight like that, miss.
You calling me fat?
You know that is not what I'm referring to, miss. In actuality, I think you look a little malnourished. I don't think living off whatever century-old food you can find is very healthy.
Oh gee, thanks for your helpful advice. I'll be sure to hit up the next Trader Joe's I pass, and I'm sure that after 2 centuries they'll still be selling quality organic food.
No need for sarcasm, miss. I just stated the facts.
Sometimes I love that robot, but most of the time I wish I made him mute. Or maybe only able to communicate through a series of beeps and boops. Then again, I'm sure that would get annoying too. Anyway, on to the situation at hand. Normally I wouldn't be agonizing over a jump like this, but I had still not had a chance to relax enough yet. Between being chased by some winged menaces, falling through yet another large hole, and narrowly escaping some thugs from a rather unsavory lab, my legs throbbed in agony at the mere thought of trying to make a jump like this. But I had no choice. It was either this or face an unknown number of flesh-eating monsters. I promised myself that I will relax once I get to Hope. And nothing will stop me from doing so. I'm gonna try to make this jump, Onion.
Are you sure you're up to it, miss?
No, but would you rather me be down there with them?
I suppose not, miss. Do be careful.
Careful? That's my middle name. I think I heard a scoff from him. Can a robot even scoff? I shook my head and focused on clearing it, looking over the edge of the track. I could see that the distance to the ground was nearly equidistant to that of the building, so even if I missed, the fall shouldn't kill me. I took a deep breath, but something caught my eye from below. While the rising sun was starting to cut through the shade, it wasn't high enough to create a noticeable glow down below me, but one was slowly starting to emerge. My heart stopped when I realized what it was. I heard a bellowing below me as one of those green glowing bastards, this time a hippopotamus, looked straight at me, as if it was trying to peer into my very soul. The noise it made caused movement on the ground. It was alerting the ghouls below to my presence. Well, fuck. Turning back towards Onion, I took my bag off and handed it to him. The extra weight would have just slowed me down. I backed up a bit more, allowing myself some distance to build up speed, and then I shot off running. I could feel the track shaking as some of the rather large mammals must have been trying to either climb or collapse it. I ignored everything as I reached the edge. While there were plenty of openings in the building below me, I had noticed some dangers as well. Shards of glass and shattered windows, large spike-like structures, possibly broken girdles, or other supports. And all the dangers that I couldn't see were waiting for me inside. If I timed this wrong, rather than fall into a pit of ghouls, I could get impaled on something. And both those outcomes would really ruin my day. Once I had a mental image of where I wanted to land, I focused on pushing my legs to their limits, which were pretty low right now. I couldn't hesitate even for a moment. I reached the edge, squatted down, and pushed with all my might. I saw dozens upon dozens of ghouls, all of them reaching up as if they were trying to pluck me from the air. Was it because of that glowing ghoul there were so many down there? Or did they all die while attending some kind of mass event? I couldn't think about that right now. The gap was closing as the building was getting dangerously close. I saw I was going to make it. That is, until I started to lose velocity and began to drift downwards. Well, shit. While being airborne like this didn't offer too much room to maneuver, I was able to move my body in a way that I was now aimed towards the room next to my original target. This did, however, put me much closer to the ground as I noticed a ghoul starting to climb up the structure. I was about to make my landing, and I really hope it's a safe one. I tucked myself into a ball as I flew through the window. I felt a sharp pain on my back as something cut me as I tumbled onto the surface. I rolled for a few seconds before I was able to stop myself. I placed my paw on my back where the pain was and pulled it away, fur soaked in blood. Well, at least I'm alive.
Miss, those creatures are starting to swarm the building.
Onion floated down to where I was. I ran over to him and grabbed my bag, reaching in for something. I got to the side and saw a bevy of ghouls scaling the side. I only had one more grenade left after this. I was getting used to having them. But they have been very helpful to me. I popped the cap and pressed the button. I could see the glowing one just standing there as if it was a general conducting his forces. I smiled, and I could have swore I saw it take a step back when I did, as if it knew what I was about to do. I released the button, and the grenade fell. We have to move, now. With my bag flung over my shoulder, I started to run towards the opposite end of the room. Everything was disorienting. The walls being my floor and ceiling, and the only exit was a sideways doorway. Thankfully, I didn't end up in some rodent office, so the doorway was large enough for me to take a running slide through. I heard the explosion as I emerged from the other side. The entire building started to shake with a shockwave, rippling through the metallic structure. I tried standing up, but another shake knocked me down. I didn't delay getting up again as Onion made sure he was right behind me. I made sure not to look back as we searched for a way out. We were in a long corridor, but due to the position of it, the doorways on the floor were more like pit traps. Most of them had missing doors, so I had to jump over them, each time the muscles in my legs burning as they tried very hard not to simply lock up. Even the occasional closed door I tried to either jump over, or in the case of the smaller ones, move around so that way I didn't risk falling through them. Thankfully, there were not a lot of obstacles in the corridor. A few small statues and a couple unidentifiable machines were scattered here and there, but nothing that would hamper my movement too much. I still had not seen nor heard any signs of the ghouls, and while I would love to say I had killed them all, my luck was not that good. I could see the end of the hall approaching, and just like the room I had first entered, there was a lengthwise door about to greet me, but this one was closed. Unlike the other doors that were made of mostly wood, this door was solid metal. I had to crane my neck to read the words that were written on it. Stairwell. Well, this would not do. Normally, if you were running through a building with who knows what chasing you, stairs would become a welcome sight, since you were typically led to the ground, and thus the exit. In this case, however, they were not very helpful. I needed to go straight, not left or right. I chanced to look behind me, but there was still nothing. I felt myself relax, but then I heard a scuffling noise coming from the leftmost side of the stairwell. Fuck, they must have found a way in. I saw a sign posted near me that said, "Emergency Exit," and pointed towards the right, up towards what would have been the roof. It must have been a fire escape or something, but anything is better than this. Climbing at an angle was a slight challenge. Since I couldn't use the stairs as they were intended, I had to run along the wall and then jump to the next wall to continue. My legs were just about to give out, so I occasionally pulled myself up with my arms. I could still hear the noises. They were either slowing down or I was moving at the same rate as them, but thankfully I saw no one. This went on for at least 7 or 8 minutes before finding a metal door marked emergency exit. I pushed on the handle and it fell down under its own weight, the bright sun nearly blinding me as I left the much darker building. I stepped out and quickly pulled back as I realized that the surface outside was actually a metal railing that surrounded the fire escape. I carefully placed my foot perpendicular to the bars, trying my best to support myself. Once I was sure I wasn't going to fall, and that Onion had escaped with me, I struggled to lift the door back up. It was very heavy, especially how it was positioned. Once I had lifted it high enough, Onion managed to float underneath it and help me lift it. We finally got it back in its closed position, and a small click secured it in place. I just hope they don't try to open it. The ground was not far from where I was, but jumping down in my condition was out of the question. Ahead of me I could see the continuation of the tracks, gradually declining in elevation as it traveled away from me. In the distance I saw a skyline that was made up of dozens of buildings, each with their own shape and architectural diversity. It almost looked as if a wall had been formed behind a large building. And that's when I noticed the tracks ahead of me converged onto that building, along with a few others arriving from different angles. Between me and the building, it was flat and clear, just like the park surrounding Little Redentia. I took out my scope and looked closer. The building looked as if it was built in a large arch, with antler-looking towers on either side, although I could tell at least one of them had broken off at some point. All the rails converged on a central arc to that building, but I saw that it had been boarded up. The top of the building must have contained multiple windows, but they also were boarded up as well. Written there in large red letters were 3 words that brought relief to me: Town of Hope.
Looks like we made it, miss.
There were many thoughts going through my head at this moment. I was glad to have finally made it to my destination alive. I was also looking forward to rest, relaxation, and meeting up with Bo and his family again, thinking it would be nice to see how they had been since we first met. Mostly I was glad to see a town still standing, and not a charred husk. I don't know what I would have done if Hope had met the same fate as Beaverton. My relief was wiped away as an explosion jarred my thoughts. Smoke started to billow up from the opposite side of the distant building. Then I heard gunfire echo through the air. Even with my scope, I was not able to view anything through the building, but I knew something was wrong. I started to find my way down towards the street, completely forgetting about any ghouls that might still be after me. I didn't know much about Hope, nor knew what was going on, but deep down I knew something was wrong.
Miss?
We've got to move, Onion. Hope is in trouble. I ignored all my pain and pushed myself to run. I forgot about all the ghouls and the exhaustion racing through my body, and the stinging pain from where I sliced my back. Images ran through my head. The innocent cheetah being gunned down after asking for help. The look of fear on Beau's wife and child as I tried to disarm their collars. Smoke from the explosion drifted towards me as images of Beaverton flashed in my head. The smell of charred flesh. The pig who was simply trying to save innocent children. And then I remembered Mr. Big, sacrificing himself to save me. I will not let any more innocents die, even if it costs me my own health. I will protect Hope. I will protect anyone who is in trouble. North thought I was some bumbling bunny who was in over her head. I'll show him. I'll show everyone who tries to challenge me. My name is Olivia Springs, and I will be the hero this world needs.